Welcome to the Contrarians, where we are right and you are wrong. I'm Julio.
And I'm Alex. Here on the show, we rage against the Rotten Tomatoes machine. For the first half of each episode, Contrarians Corner, we trash the fresh red tomatoes and praise the rotten green splotches, making our case any way we can.
The aptly titled Real Talk serves as the second half of each episode. This is where we discuss our true feelings on the movie we're covering. For more information on our podcast and to browse past episodes, you can head over to our website, wearethecontrarians.com.
From there, you can also access our Patreon and merchandise, because capitalism.
If you enjoy our attempts at comedic film discussions, we encourage you to subscribe and leave us a review on whatever podcatcher you use.
If you'd like to reach out to us directly, that's what social media is for. You can find us on most platforms as @ContrarianPrime.
You can also see what we look like if you go to youtube.com/@ContrarianPrime, and you can contact us by email at wearethecontrarians@gmail.com.
I think that covers it.
Then it's time for the podcast. And we are recording for Contrarians Corner for Spider-Man No Way Home.
Hello, and welcome to the Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong. My name is Alex, joined as always by my podcasting partner and co-pilot in the never-ending journey of the contrary in at least this universe. There's possibly other Julio and Alexes out there.
There's a universe where I try to kill you, and then you kill me.
Yes. I hold you in my arms as you die because you tried to kill me.
And it's very sad.
A lot to unpack here today as we're continuing on with, it's not really a brainchild because we're not doing like a full journey with this, but Julio definitely brought the heat with a little two-parter with some goodies over on our Patreon page. We're here today to discuss 2021's Spider-Man No Way Home. Much like the last film we covered, directed by John Watts and written by Chris McKenna and Eric Summers. Has there been a Spider-Man movie since this, Julio?
Not with Tom Holland. I mean, there was a Spider-Verse animated sequel, but, you know, that is different universe.
Okay. Has anyone in this movie had a Okay, so the teaser at the end of this is a new Doctor Strange movie. So there was a Doctor Strange that came after this, I'm assuming.
Yes, among other things that have come since.
So a fairly recent movie for the purposes of what we do here. This coming off the heels of Far From Home, which to say I was less than impressed by would be a bit of an underselling. And Julio thinks it's okay to pretty good. Will this movie redeem it in the eyes of myself or Julio? Which I don't know if it needed redeeming for Julio. I know who it didn't need redeeming for. The people that gave this movie a near $2 billion box office return. A movie that is celebrated for its meme culture. This movie basically made memes come to life. and one that I guess for the time being, I'm supposed to interpret this as a bow on the Tom Holland Spider-Man journey, as this did round out a bit of a trilogy here. So, Julio, you saw this in the theater. I guess I just wanted to start with your personal anecdote on this because this was your selection. So I take it you saw this in the theater.
I did. It was, I mean, how could I not? We've established over the run of this podcast, most specifically the most recent episode and you know, our Avengers episode and overall, people that listen to the show, I think they can tell that I'm a big Spider-Man fan. So if there's a Spider-Man movie out there, I'm going to go watch it as soon as possible. And that was the case here. I think that number, Alex, almost $2 billion and everything else surrounding this movie. I mean, you have to put it in the context also of it was 2021, but we were still kind of in the throes of our movie's dead because of COVID. It was, or rather, our movie theater is dead because of COVID. That was the thing that was happening, because I remember it was a very calculated risk going to see Spider-Man No Way Home. I even pulled a quote that we'll be reading shortly that references the fact that there was a new variant that had just popped up around the time that this movie was coming out. So not all of us, but, you know, some of us were masking up, getting second doses of vaccines.
I didn't realize this was Christmas time. It was December 17th was its release date.
Did you catch the Christmas tree at the end? I mean, is this Spider-Man movie a Christmas movie?
You could make that argument. You really could, if you wanted to bend the rules of, kind of some of the things I put in place.
You open a loophole, you open all the loopholes.
That's true. I was just thinking time frame because, I went to Vegas in August of 2021 and everyone was they had a pretty strict mask ordinance in place, which, of course, I'm not a baby, so I don't mind. I was just trying to think of December, what it would have looked like. Anyway, it worked. People went out to the movie theater to see this. And interestingly enough, it is the Spider-Man entry that is not on Disney Plus. I was reading a little bit about it, and it has to do with, I guess there's a little bit more of complicated rights when it comes to Spider-Man as opposed to the rest of the Marvel franchise. It was kind of taken in one foul swoop from Disney. It looks like Sony owns a bit of that pie, so they're like, well, no, we can still make money off this movie, so you're not going to be putting it up on your streaming service. So you can pay to rent this movie, you can pay to own it, or if you have a wonderful co-host on your podcast like I do, they provide you with the physical media to watch it. He gifted me this as well as the twofer of the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies. So,
well, it was really it was a Dunstan Checks In sandwich with Spider-Man movies as the bread.
Yes, the Dunstan Checks In VHS, which was spinning pretty continuously on the CRT during my holiday break.
You're welcome.
Yes, my sister had a friend over and they were having a conversation. She's like, "I'm sorry, I just got distracted. Why is there a monkey on that TV?" I was like, "It's Dunstan."
I'm sure Nerdrovert or patron Nerdrovert heard that and his heart filled with joy.
It grew 3 sizes that day.
Yes.
All right. As we once again enter the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we first visit our friends/enemies over at Rotten Tomatoes. 93%. This trilogy on the whole is very celebrated critically and obviously financially. Julio, which quotes did you pull for us?
Ladies and gentlemen, the Bugle tip line has just received a call from none other than the fugitive known as Spider-Man, fresh from his rampage in Queens.
There's so many red tomatoes, Alex. It was the real challenge was finding the green splotches because I didn't want to keep scrolling, but I had to. So we're going to start with the fresh quotes on this side of the conversation, and we're going to open with Annie Banks from Chuckload of Comics, who's going to use one of your favorite terms of endearment, Alex. Spider-Man No Way Home is truly an open love letter to the Spider-Man franchise, crafted with such thoughtful care.
Barf. Not
just a love letter, but an open love letter.
You can't be a love letter to something that's not even 20 years old. Like, God, now I'm going to start defending shit like La La Land. Like, it's a love letter to the days of classic Hollywood. That statement, as asshole-ish as it may be, makes more sense than saying this is a love letter to the Spider-Man film franchise.
Well, we're in the year 2025. Now maybe it qualifies as a love letter. Right?
Yeah. I gotta set ground rules on like exact dates of how long it can be.
Also,
it's what it is. Look, you'd be so much better off and not sound like a douchebag if you just said it's a celebration of the Spider-Man film franchise.
Yes. But also, notice how Annie Banks did not use the word film. She just said Spider-Man franchise. So, I mean, you could call the entirety of Spider-Man mythology part of the franchise, right? Like from the first comic. So it's a love letter to the 60s, 70s, 80s.
You got me there. I didn't do my due diligence of listening, active listening. So well done.
All right. Next, Rahul Desai from News 9 Live, India. Spider-Man No Way Home is almost a psycho study of the 2-decade-long Spider-Man phenomenon. All right. So Rahul actually, he gave us a time, 2 decades. So they're talking about the movies only, I'm guessing. Psycho study sounds worse than love letter, though.
Overthinking it a bit, yeah.
Yeah. Don't use the big words, Rahul. We're all friends here. You can just say love letter. Alex Hudson from Exclaim says, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is possibly the best film of the superhero boom, so why not do basically the exact same movie except with real actors instead of computer animation? Well, because there's only so much you can do with real actors. Wouldn't you agree, Alex?
Did they watch that movie? Did they not see like part of it was just like part of the appeal of that movie was its visual like presentation, and the movie was like a fucking drug trip to a certain extent of just, I'm thinking about the right movie, right? Where like Kingpin is the size of a building.
Yep. Yeah. Voiced by Liev Schreiber.
Liev Schreiber. Absolutely. Yeah. Into the Spider-Verse fucking rules, but it's also like an animated film. It's not just something that's overly, it's not a live action movie overly reliant on CG. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious that Alex Hudson says, except with real actors instead of computer animation. Is there no computer animation in Spider-Man No Way Home?
There's plenty.
That's the Lizard. I mean, I guess you could argue that it captures the essence of Rhys Ifans, but it's mostly a computer animation.
That's not him, right? Because that's not his voice.
I don't think so. I think if I remember correctly, they wouldn't get Rhys Ifans to come back because I guess he's too good for superhero movies now. But they had, God, I hope I got this right. If not, somebody will call us out. But I think they had like some stock footage, like some B-roll from the first Amazing Spider-Man. So they used that for the couple of times where you actually see him as a human. And then the rest of the time, I guess
it's quite obvious.
Yeah, they got some dude to do a Rhys Ifans impersonation.
Well, let's not let it ruin our vacation.
We can pretend that it's Rhys Ifans. Next, Josie Ruprecht from Pauline Media Studies says Tom Holland gives one of the best performances of his life, which I find hilarious, Alex, because this kid's like, what, 16? I mean, it's not like he has, he's not De Niro, right? It's not like you have 100 performances to choose from. He played Spider-Man, and then what else?
Drake something or other, because he was the lead in the Uncharted movie.
That's very true, but was that before or after this movie?
I'm almost positive it was after.
So it wouldn't have been in consideration at the time that
Nathan Drake.
Yeah, Nathan Drake. There you go. Anyway, we're going to close with Susan Granger from SusanGranger.com, who says, action-packed, nostalgic hit, jump-starting theater going despite the Omicron variant. Do you remember the Omicron variant, Alex?
I do now, yeah.
It's probably the reason you were masking up for that WrestleMania.
Well, I was also just going to be around wrestling fans, so.
Yeah, the Omicron variant, I had completely forgotten until I read this quote, and then it took a moment for me to catch up. I was like, what is this? What are they talking about? Is that character? A multiverse variant? Oh, no, that's something that happened in real life and almost killed us. Okay, well, Spider-Man saved theaters at least. But those are the quotes, Alex. Let's go into Contrarians Corner.
Governments around the world launch investigations into the murderer known as Spider-Man, a.k.a. Peter Parker, a.k.a. the web-headed war criminal who for years has been terrorizing the decent citizens of New York.
So once again, we are at one of these Marvel movies that we're supposed to believe is like the end, is the culmination of everything. And in the end, it doesn't really mean much. If you haven't listened to our Far From Home episode, go check that out to get yourself up to speed on what we're heading into here. But first note, I just want to call out, I forgot it's Marvel Studios. I always forget that now that these movies are released under Marvel Studios. Like, you know, it's not like the 20th Century Fox signature hits. And then we get to see like the Marvel logo, because I was getting excited and I was like making the noise to myself. I really missed the beginning of the old Marvel movies when it was the pages flipping. It was like, it would be so serene in the theater as that was happening.
You do get the Sony logo, which I guess doesn't, do much for you.
Not the same. No.
Yeah, this one we really get shortchanged because we didn't even get the Marvel anthem, right? All we get is sound clips from the end of the last movie.
Yeah, my point is just, it's not branded Marvel anymore. It's a Marvel studio. So these movies start with like fucking 3 studio signatures. So bring back the flipping comic book pages, or
at least the anthem. I like both. I like a combination of both. I like the flipping pages that fade into the anthem. Dun, 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 dun. You're right. Like I was wondering what happened.
We immediately pick up where we left off. We're at the steps of Madison Square Garden as Jonah Jameson is revealing the identity of Peter Parker. Spider-Man. After Quentin Beck frames Peter Parker for his murder and reveals that Peter is Spider-Man, the Department of Damage Control interrogates Peter, his girlfriend, Michelle M.J. Jones Watson, his best friend Ned Leeds, and his aunt May Parker. Lawyer Matt Murdock gets Peter's charges dropped, but the group grapples with negative publicity. After Peter's, MJ's, and Ned's MIT applications are rejected, Peter goes to New York Sanctum to ask Dr. Stephen Strange for help. Strange starts casting a spell that would make everyone forget Peter's Spider-Man, but it is corrupted when Peter repeatedly requests alterations to let his loved ones retain their memories. Strange contains the corrupted spell, or so we think. So, first off, like I said, immediate pickup where we left off. Jacob Batalon, the gentleman who plays Ned, this is not a knock on him. This is a good thing. Clearly lost a lot of weight in between the second and third movies here. So that's the only thing of like, oh, because, it's not like
these were not shot back to back.
Exactly. It's not like the Lord of the Rings when they shot them all, together there. And again, I don't want that to be construed as negative, but it's just kind of funny. He's like, yeah,
it's puberty.
I've been jogging around the block a few times while, we were waiting for you and dropped some of that weight. So,
do you think Jake Gyllenhaal gets paid, like gets residuals? Because he's in the movie, right?
Yeah. So be curious about the Rise Iphans thing of, I'm sure I can find a little bit more about that before we record our warm up for this, but, yeah, he
gets 5 cents every time somebody plays Spider-Man No Way Home.
If he views himself as more of a celebrated actor now, he's probably just like, I don't want it. I think Peter's lawyer here is supposed to be, that's Daredevil, right?
Yes, I'm so proud of you.
Okay.
I didn't know if you would know. But okay, did you catch it from the beginning? Or because this is, I guess you wouldn't know, Alex, but that's the same guy that played Daredevil in the Netflix series.
I know. I don't know shit about that. I just know what Daredevil looks like. He's got the red glasses, and I know I'm familiar with the Daredevil character. So it's like, is that supposed to be Daredevil? So you answered my question. I was like, is this supposed to be a tie-in to anything else that they had Daredevil branded?
Yeah, it was one of the many, many rumors surrounding the movie. I've referenced before when I was writing for that website, how I was against my will. I had to write about this movie, even though I was trying not to spoil myself. I had to literally write an article about all the potential rumors and cameos and whatever. And one of the big things was Daredevil. And I was like, I hate it because I think it makes sense, right? Everybody was saying, hey, at the end of Far From Home, he's in trouble. He's going to need a lawyer. So this is how they get Daredevil into the MCU. And son of a bitch, they were right. And then, of course, I'm like, well, okay, we're here now, so I guess we're going to see a Spider-Man team up with Daredevil. No, that's it. He gets one scene and it's over. Were you bummed that we didn't get the trial of Peter Parker?
No, because there was 2.5 hours of this movie yet to come, so. He
could have cut on May bullshit and just give me
Aunt May bullshit.
Some solid courtroom scenes.
Yeah, talk about not a knock. I'm not going to complain about Marissa Tomei being on my screen, who also really steps up the chops in this one in terms of acting and delivery.
Who also lost weight in between movies.
Oh, no. Marissa Tomei is perfect. Has been that way for decades. Benny Cum, as it says in my notes here, Benedict Cumberbatch back in the fray. I've obviously seen the ones that he's like part of the team on, and then I saw the first Doctor Strange movie. Famously, my main compliment towards that movie is or my main attribute that I assigned to that movie is it made Rachel McAdams look like a bad actress. So that's its legacy in my mind. I do like Benedict Cumberbatch though. I kind of like how pissy he is, and Doctor Strange is a character I only have like arm's length knowledge of. Is the Doctor Strange character in like the comic books really curt and
I don't think so.
Easy to annoy, kind of like Benedict Cumberbatch is?
I don't think so. I mean, I've read Doctor Strange appearances in other comics. I don't think I've ever read a Doctor Strange comic, so maybe he is a dick in his own series. But I always thought he was more of the kind of like quiet, laid back wise guy, not wise guy. He's not a gangster. Like, he has wisdom. He is the Sorcerer Supreme. So he's, he doesn't really let anybody get under his skin. That's always been the persona that I've associated with him. It's kind of weird to see him here. He's not even the Sorcerer Supreme anymore. Did you catch that? Apparently, because of the blip, he got demoted. It was like in between, like off camera, they turned him into a loser. Now he's just underneath Wong, which I was happy to see. At least that Benedict Wong got a couple of the scenes here. I don't know why he didn't show up to help at the end, but at least he's running things at the Strange Mansion. But ultimately, Alex, this is basically Benedict Cumberbatch bringing Doctor Strange as an replacement for Robert Downey Jr., right? Downey Jr. was Peter's mentor in the first movie, Iron Man. We spent the second movie mourning Iron Man. And now in the third one, well, we don't have Downey anymore, so I guess we're bringing Doctor Strange. And it's not the same. I mean, wouldn't you agree that as charming in his own way as Benedict Cumberbatch can be, he is not Robert Downey Jr.?
Yes, I would agree with that statement. And you mentioned Wong. Benedict Wong is a good actor. He's been in things that I've liked. Johnny English and Prometheus immediately come to mind.
Yeah.
We've talked about him. He was in Annihilation also. So I was kind of bummed that he wasn't around more because I do like his sarcasm. And like I said, I just think he's a good actor. But yeah, this whole franchise is built around Robert Downey Jr., not Spider-Man. I'm talking like this whole Marvel bullshit, man. Like that's all. That first Iron Man didn't do well. You and I would not be having this conversation right now. And, or it's unlikely, I should say. No guarantees. And to go from that to Benedict Cumberbatch, who has some cool powers and results in some pretty cool like visuals and whatnot. But you have to do that thing of like space gets ripped open. And so, I don't know if Iron Man could necessarily do that unless he like flew around the world really fast in the opposite direction. And,
he would figure it out, Alex.
He would.
If I learned something from Downey Jr.'s performance is that his Iron Man always came up with something to solve the problem. Look, if I was cynical, if I was feeling cynical, I would say that the main reason we have Doctor Strange here and even Benedict Wong playing Wong is so that we can drum up excitement for the Doctor Strange movie that came out after this. So it is a business. It's show business. So we got to take all the advertisements.
So, Peter, to what do I owe the pleasure?
Right. Well, I'm really sorry to bother you, sir, but...
Please, safe to have the universe together. I think we're beyond you calling me sir.
Okay, Stephen.
That feels weird, but I'll allow it.
At Strange's suggestion, Peter tries to convince an MIT administrator to reconsider MJ's and Ned's applications. He is attacked by Otto Octavius, yes, Alfred Molina, who rips nanotechnology from Peter's Iron Man suit. This bonds with Octavius's mechanical tentacles and allows Peter to take control of them. As Norman Osborn arrives and attacks, Strange teleports Peter back to the Sanctum and locks Octavius in his cell next to Kurt Connors, the Lizard. Strange explains that the corrupted spell summoned people from other universes within the multiverse who know Spider-Man's identity. He orders Peter, MJ, and Ned to find and capture the others. They locate and retrieve Max Dillon and Flint Marko at a military research facility. Pretty clever idea of how to make this happen. I'm not going to lie. I like that idea. Some of these things were spoiled for me, and I don't mean that in the sense of like someone told me and was like, oh, this happens. Just, very casual browsing of the internet revealed what happened in this and in the wake of it. So when Alfred Molina showed up, I was like, hell yeah, but I knew that was coming. I watched this with my sister who knew nothing about this.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So she was like, when the spell was happening, she's like, is this going to like open up time and space? And then when the tentacles showed up, she's like, is that Alfred Molina? And then she's like, wait, does this mean like people from the other movies are going to be in this? And it's very innocent and adorable.
That's amazing. I can't fathom someone in 2025 not knowing that that's what would happen, because I feel like
that's how far
knows
removed she is from like the Marvel stuff, dude.
But even in 2021, I mean, she could have heard somebody talking about it. Did you know that Alfred Molina and Willem Dafoe like came back?
Yeah, but it's like when you tell me stuff that happens in these movies, or I tell you these things that happen in wrestling. You're like, yeah, sure, that could happen. Kind of goes in one ear, not the other. It's like, yeah, whatever.
She's like, oh, that Alfred Molina.
Yeah, it was cool to see him. When Benedict shows up and takes them back to his, fortress, he has a good line of, "We need to find these others and contain them before anything worse happens or anything bad happens." And he goes, "Or worse, Wong finds out." I thought that was pretty funny. But this movie, Julio, this is where it starts, and it's just we're on the treadmill. And it's going to keep going this way. It's just a gimmick. Like the gimmick is, hey, remember this movie? It makes no effort to say, watch this movie. It tells you the entire time, think about these other movies.
Like, you don't need to watch this movie. You just need to remember the other movies. I did find it hilarious. I don't know if it was meant to be, that Dr. Octopus's arms are Bluetooth compatible. Like, that's how Spider-Man wins that fight. It's like, please pair with the new device. And suddenly he can just control Octavius's tentacles. That was funny. Before we move on to just the movie being overpowered by nostalgia and callbacks and chainsaws, how sad is it, Alex, that we spent all of the second movie developing a supporting cast that is basically written out of the movie and out of the third movie within the first 20 minutes?
Dude, and I rewatched Homecoming since we did the other one, so I can just piece it all together. You can watch those two movies back to back, and really the only thing that it wants to remind you of the second movie, it shows to you in the first 30 seconds of this. Like, there is nothing of consequence that's carried over from that second movie.
Right? Even Ned doesn't have a girlfriend anymore. He got a girlfriend and he lost a girlfriend. And then we see Betty Brant for like 30 seconds reporting on Peter's return to school.
Martin Starr's not even in this. Yeah. Oh, wait, no, him and JB Smoove have like the one moment. And Hannibal Buress is there, doesn't even get a line, but get paid, man.
They keep charging him. It's weird because you have even Flash Thompson. You think that maybe this is the movie where they finally give Flash something to do other than being comic relief, because he's written a book about his friendship with Spider-Man. But no, he, by the time that the Dr. Octopus shows up.
That was a laugh out loud moment.
Yeah. How do you like his highlights? It were highlights, right? No, he just went complete dye job.
He bleached his hair, yeah.
Yeah, it was... I thought maybe this is the one where Flash plays an important part in the movie, but no. By the time Dr. Octopus shows up, that's it. That's the end of the Flash contribution to the story. So yeah, it's a bummer. And then I understand that basically these are the characters, right? You have to make the movie. You can get rid of everybody else, but you can't get rid of MJ and Ned. That's why they're there. But it's kind of weird that Peter and Doctor Strange can't come up with more powerful people to help. Like, they can still be there for moral support, but when Peter said, I need a team or I need help, I thought that they were going to bring some other Avengers, right? You're in the Marvel Universe. You've introduced so many other characters. Man, at least bring Happy Hogan, like bring Jon Favreau into the action. So he's something other than comic relief. But no, he just brought his girlfriend and his best friend. At least at that point, we didn't think they had any powers. It's like, what's the point?
We mentioned that he discovers Max Dillon, who is Electro, Jamie Foxx from The Amazing Spider-Man 2, looking absolutely nothing like he does in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. It made me think of the scene in Rise of Skywalker where we just have to see... No, not Rise of Skywalker. Which one is it where there's that shot of Adam Driver with his shirt off for no reason? Is that Last Jedi? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, when he's mentally connecting with Rey. It's just kind of like, why? And Jamie Foxx, credit, he's jacked here. And like his hair and goatee are like perfectly lined up.
No gap between the teeth?
No. And like, if you listen to our Patreon episode, I thought the most interesting part about his character was that he was like this psychotic, neurotic man.
And now he's Jamie Foxx.
And now he's just Jamie Foxx with a superhero outfit. That's what it is. I did not know that Thomas Hayden Church was in this, or at least his voice. And so when the sand wall showed up, I was like, hell yeah. Let's go. UNT, mean green, baby. My first note just says THC. And then later when it's confirmed, when we get an actual shot of his face, I was like, yeah, hell yeah, let's go. But yeah, Jamie Foxx is just standing here completely naked, looking jacked. And what's the implication here, Julio? He got like cool. He died in the second one, in the Amazing Spider-Man 2. Like what? Where did he get this look from?
Another universe.
Uh-huh.
What? That's what I was feeling. The power is different. I like it.
Look, I'm going to get scientific, which is something the movie should have done. But I think that he is no longer corporeal because he's a being of electricity. And maybe in the transition to Tom Holland's universe, he gained confidence and he absorbed new energy. And that allowed him to suddenly create a new body, a body that he would be happy with subconsciously. I think that's what I'm going with, Alex. The movie, all it says is like somebody acknowledges it. Who is it? I think it's a lizard. The lizard says like, hey, you used to look different. You used to look like a loser, and now you look like Jamie Foxx. And then Jamie Foxx goes like, yeah, and that's it. They don't revisit it. They don't have anybody question it. Thomas Hayden Church, on the other hand, he's just sand the entire time. In the third Sam Raimi movie, I thought he could go back and forth between sand and regular, right? But in this one, he just decided to stay with the sand the entire time.
Or he was like, nope, I'm not wearing that mocap suit, so you can just, I'll record the lines you need, and we'll, then you can get one shot of my face at the end. Willem Dafoe in the fray. He reclaims control of himself from the split Green Goblin personality and destroys the Goblin mask. And then he wears like this awesome getup that looks like the outfit he wears, like this green trench coat with like a purple undershirt. It looks like how the Riddler would have dressed if Nolan made him one of the villains in his trilogy. Very hipster-esque. He gets help from Aunt May until Peter retrieves him. While discussing their battles with Spider-Man, Osborn, Octavius, and Dylan realize they were pulled from their universe just before their deaths. Strange prepares to reverse the contained spell and send the villains back to their respective universes, but Peter argues that they should first help each villain to possibly change their fates upon their return. When Strange refuses, Peter steals the spell, traps Strange in the mirror dimension, and takes the villains to Happy Hogan's apartment. He uses Stark Industries technology to cure Octavius. Before Peter can cure anyone else, his spider sense is triggered. We'll come back to this in just a moment, because the whole thing here is that Peter in this movie is overly optimistic, overly idealistic.
Well, we see where he gets it from. That's really Marisa Tomei's influence.
Dude, just like layer upon layer of varnish, just, thick as could be on top with, how she's applying this. We got to help everybody. I don't know about you, Julio. Everything I've ever learned about time travel or interdimensional travel is you don't fuck with anything and you don't change anything.
And this is supposed to be a smart kid.
Yes. If you're able to experience that at some point in your life, you are supposed to leave everything the way you left it. And if something comes with you got to get it back the way it was.
Yes. And you want to if you're going to mess with anything, you have to get it done as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. You don't have time to run tests and experiment, try to help these people. Yeah, Doctor Strange has the perfect solution. You just press this button and that's it. They're gone.
He's like, it's their fate. And he's like, we can change their fate. It's like, no, that's why it's fate.
You're not God, Peter.
What was not shared in this paragraph, though, was we have like a half hour of these guys swapping stories that, if I hadn't watched all these movies recently, it might not have been as brutal, but I was like, yep, I know all this. And anyone who went to see this movie would have known all this shit already. So just let's move along with this.
Can you imagine if you hadn't watched Amazing Spider-Man 2, though? I know it was just kind of
You would have thought Jamie Foxx was a badass in it?
Yes. But yeah, we had that fork on the road where we could have chosen to have you experience No Way Home without Amazing Spider-Man 2 or with, and we went with, which I guess, I think that eventually when we get to a Rhino joke, that wouldn't have resonated as much if you hadn't seen Paul Giamatti. So I think ultimately we did the right thing But yeah, you're right. There's a lot of dialogue that is just referencing the old movies, and fucking Norman Osborn, Willem Dafoe. That is the meme, like one of the original Spider-Man memes, where that screen cap of Dafoe going, "I'm something of a scientist myself," and then people replace scientist with other words.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can do whatever. I'm something of a podcaster myself. And then he says it here.
My favorite one is I'm somewhat of a fucking idiot myself. That's my favorite one.
Yeah, he gets that. They do a lot of callbacks to each other's movies, like from, because the Lizard is talking to Jamie Foxx, even though they never met. We never saw them meet. But technically, they both work for Oscorp. So I don't know how. Like Dr. Connors, why would he know Elektra's name, right? He calls him Max. I was like, did they ever, like, the whole point of Jamie Foxx in Amazing Spider-Man 2 was that he didn't have any friends. Nobody knew his name. That's why it's so important that Spider-Man calls him by his name. But apparently, the one other friend that he had, the one person that knew his name was the guy that turned into a giant lizard at some point. Yeah, it's too much. I am a Spider-Man fan, so I felt so pandered to. And I was like, all right, I get it. But the movie's 2.5 hours long, and you could just make them count a lot more if you just reduce the number of callbacks. Did you know that Willem Dafoe was going to be in this? I don't remember.
If I did, I sure as hell didn't know he had as big of a part as he did. If I had read about it, my assumption was that he just came in at the battle at the end. It was like, so. But spoiler alert, he's still crazy, and he, turns on Peter and ruins the fun for everybody.
They ruin Happy's apartment.
Another moment I laughed out loud. He calls Peter. He's like, "Hey, I just checked, the video for my doorbell. Who are those guys?"
It's a guy made of mud.
Jon Favreau does have a pretty sick apartment, not gonna lie.
So that's StarTech.
Before Peter can cure anyone else, as I mentioned, heel turn. His spider sense is triggered, and he realizes that the Goblin persona has retaken control of Osborn. Goblin convinces the other villains to betray Peter and fatally wounds May as Dylan, Marco, and Connors escape. Before she dies, May tells Peter that with great power, there must also come great responsibility. I mean, if you're going to recycle something from these previous movies, the best line ain't a bad thing to recycle. But yeah, she got mowed over by the glider. And when she got back up, I was like, oh no, something's probably not right. And then she fell and, she got stabbed or impaled on the glider in the end. It's very sad. I don't like Marissa Tomei dying.
I mean, the movie takes a pretty tragic turn from here on, because before that, it was just fun and games and Peter being quippy. That it was the kind of movie where you kind of had to go with the idea that Peter Parker, Spider-Man, would outwit and outpower Doctor Strange in the Mirror Universe in order for the story to happen. So I think that when you're setting up that kind of story, it's kind of a betrayal when then 20, 30 minutes later, you kill one of the major good guys, or good women in this case. Like, this is not the type of movie where I was expecting anybody to die. Did you realize that Aunt May was not long for this world from the moment that the bad guys turned bad?
Just a second. Catch my breath. Okay, we'll catch your breath. I'm right here. We're gonna take our time. You catch your breath, and then we'll take you to a doctor, okay?
So, as I mentioned, I rewatched Homecoming, and one of the elements of that movie I'd forgotten about, and we talk about it on the Patreon page of me putting my finger on the things that really work for me about that one. I'd forgotten there is no origin story in that, because in a shocking twist of fate, the people who make these movies treated their audiences with intelligence. Like, you guys know this already. But Julio, you know this. You can lay the timetable out better for me because this stuff means more to you than it does to me. The Tom Holland first appearance, his debut in this iteration of these Marvel movies, was the Civil War movie, right?
Right. He was already Spider-Man.
Yes. And then Homecoming was the first full-length movie about him as Spider-Man.
Correct. That is after Civil War, but before Infinity War.
Correct. So I was putting the pieces together here because we did Far From Home, and then rewatching that, I was like, oh, he hasn't experienced a mass tragedy yet like the other two homeboys did.
That's why he's so happy-go-lucky.
Yeah, that's why the world hasn't broken him down yet, And so when this was all happening, I was like, man, is Marissa Tomei going to die? And then she did. And I was like, well, the bloom's off the rose. I thought until the next scene. And then the whole gang's here. It's a party now.
I don't know if this is a good or a bad performance from Tom Holland, but when she's dying and she hits him with great power comes great responsibility line, his face is like he just realized what's happening. He was like, oh my God, this is the origin story. It's like if Batman was witnessing his parents getting shot in that alley, right? That's, you know, like
they told him, you must be a Dark Knight.
Yes. I felt like I wasn't watching Peter Parker. I felt like I was watching Tom Holland, Spider-Man fan, suddenly getting hit by the fact that, oh, this is my Uncle Ben moment, except it's Aunt May. They kept it from him so he wouldn't spoil it. The thing that bothered me now is that for 2.5 movies now, you know, let's count Homecoming, Far From Home, and then his appearances in the Avengers, there's been some mild allusions to what made him Spider-Man. And so anybody that was watching the movies was simply assuming that was just the Uncle Ben tragedy shaping him into Spider-Man. And we just, you know, we didn't see it because we didn't need to see it because we've seen it 1,000 times. But, you know, but it was still there. But now, if this is the first time he's hearing with great power comes great responsibility and, you know, Aunt May's dying, what has he been referring to? What was the thing that, you know, when he's talking to Tony Stark in Civil War and he's explaining why he's Spider-Man, he says sometimes bad things happen and, you know, you have the power to stop them. What was he talking about? What was the bad thing that happened that made him turn into Spider-Man? Was he just reciting whatever Marissa Tomei had been telling him at dinner, right? She convinced him. No, because she didn't even know that he had powers at the time. So I don't know. I don't think that they had planned this out. I think that this was just like, well, it's the third movie and we got to kill someone.
They were like, fuck, he hasn't experienced tragedy yet.
He's going to look so vanilla next to the other two. We got to grizzle him.
We got to check that box before we bring in the other guys.
Yeah.
So Ned discovers he can create portals using Strange's sling ring, which he and MJ use to try to locate Peter. They instead find alternate versions of Peter who were summoned from the villains' universes by Strange's spell and are nicknamed Peter 2 and Peter 3. These, of course, are played by Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. The group finds this universe's Peter, nicknamed Peter 1, who is mourning May and ready to send the villains home to die. The alternate Peters share their stories of losing loved ones and encourage Peter 1 to fight in May's honor. So this is like trauma bonding between the three of them.
The Spider-Man therapy group. You knew that this was happening, Alex. Oh, yeah. We'll talk. In real talk, we'll talk about that, the experience of watching it when you're not sure if it's going to happen. But there's like a stark contrast between Andrew Garfield coming in, and you're like, man, that's Andrew Garfield. I mean, I've seen Andrew Garfield in a 2024 movie, you know, like recently.
Yeah.
Tobey Maguire, it's been a while since I've seen him in a movie, and even longer since I've seen him as Peter Parker. So when he comes through, he looks like Peter Parker's dad. Did you have that reaction? It's like, that's old Peter.
Yeah. He looks like someone who played Spider-Man 18 years before this, you know?
He doesn't even know who the Avengers are, Alex.
I forgot how sporadic his appearances in live-action movies were after Spider-Man 3. He has, along with a lot of other people, Cameo and Tropic Thunder, but obviously Brothers, which is one of my favorites. Right. That's a fantastic film. The Great Gatsby, which your mileage may vary. Do you remember what movie he plays the grown-up main character at the end of that we covered?
That we covered? Oh, yeah. Oh my God, you're right. Labor Day, right?
Labor Day. That's in 2013. And then he's in a movie called Pawn Sacrifice that looks like a biographical pic about Bobby Fischer. Yep.
Yeah, I was. I think I screened that movie.
That's 2014, and his next live action role was this.
I mean, he has all that Raimi Spider-Man money. He doesn't need to work.
Oh, exactly.
Andrew Garfield, on the other hand, he didn't read the fine print. They're like, if you don't make it to a third movie, you don't get any residuals. So he's being a workhorse since The Amazing Spider-Man ended.
Look who's come crawling back.
Is it humiliating, Alex, that they make him like prove that he's Spider-Man? Zendaya and Jacob Batalon are like, well, stick to the walls, crawl on the ceiling, clean the cobwebs,
dance for me.
Yeah.
And then they kind of just take Tobey Maguire at face value.
Yeah.
But then he shoots his web out, so they're like, oh, okay. But yeah, then we get the trauma bonding, the death of Uncle Ben, the death of Gwen Stacy, and they're all familiar with the quote, with great power comes great responsibility, and they, bond over that. And then there's like team bonding when they get in the lab and put their scientist caps on and start making these cures for the supervillains. I think Andrew Garfield's in a literal like lab coat.
Yes. Yeah, Andrew Garfield, out of the three, he's the one that looks like he's trying a little too hard to fit in, which kind of makes sense because he's the one that has probably the most divisive stint as Spider-Man. So he's like, come on, guys, let me be part of the team. And so it doesn't surprise me that he's the one that's crawling on the ceiling just because they told him to.
There is kind of a weird vibe to him in this, and not necessarily saying through any fault of Andrew Garfield's because he's obviously a great actor, but Spider-Man, the Tobey Maguire trilogy changed the game. We're in the Holland verse here with these. And then Andrew Garfield's here and he's coming, and it's obviously very fresh in my mind because earlier this week we had a long conversation about his two films, and fairly or not, they're maligned, and I have a very hard time calling anything that made, $1.5 billion total a failure. But by and large, people look at that experiment as a failure. So him being in these is kind of this, he's certainly the Ringo of the group.
Yes. Oh, that's such a perfect way of putting it. And Tobey Maguire is what, the John Lennon, right?
No, Tobey Maguire's too likable. He's Paul. He shows up and, I'm here to see Spider-Man. His old man outfit that, like, doesn't Andrew Garfield call him like a hip youth pastor or something?
Yes.
So wait, are you going to go into battle dressed as a cool youth pastor, or you got your suit?
The trauma bonding, the weirdest thing is that they both lost Uncle Ben, like Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. But when they're talking about their tragedies, Andrew Garfield doesn't mention Martin Sheen. He goes straight to Gwen Stacy. Does that mean that the trauma of losing Gwen Stacy was more powerful than the trauma of losing Uncle Ben for Andrew Garfield?
Sounds like it.
If you had both Emma Stone and Martin Sheen as part of your life, I guess it makes sense that...
Well, he was directly responsible for Emma Stone's death, like by his hand, pretty much.
I mean, it's been a long time. I didn't rewatch the first Amazing Spider-Man. So Uncle Ben just gets gunned down, right? Off screen. We don't even see it.
Yeah, and then it's very much Peter's fault in the first Sam Raimi one.
Right, yeah. No, it's like, Peter. And he dies. Yeah.
Peter. Well, no, because the guy who kills him is the guy he let run free after robbing the bank at the wrestling match.
No, Alex. Spider-Man 3 reveals that the guy that killed him was your fellow Alan that was in church.
Yeah, I don't count that. Anyway, moving along here.
That's never referenced here. When Peter sees Thomas Hayden Church, he's like, hey, Flint, how's it going? Remember when you killed my uncle?
Point of it all here is that they try to explain to Tom Holland that, like, vengeance won't, it's not going to help. Fighting for the right thing is the only way to blah, 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 blah. And so they develop cures for the villains and lure to them the Statue of Liberty, which now is a shield. I forgot about that. That's like an Endgame or some shit, right? Because it's supposed to be like Captain America.
No, I don't think so. I
don't know.
They referenced it at the beginning of the movie in the newscast. The TV is talking about it, and I had forgotten that you actually get to see it.
Okay, but it's supposed to be an homage to Captain America.
I guess it seems like it crosses a line. Can you imagine? You're gonna desecrate Lady Liberty for a superhero?
Well, in about 5 days, we'll see what's going to happen.
Well, that's a moral desecration, Alex. I don't know that they're actually going to alter Lady Liberty. I guess we'll see. You're right.
Put a
MAGA hat on her.
Yeah. Okay, where are we here? Peter 1 and Peter 2 cure Connors and Marco, while Octavius helps cure Dylan. Ned accidentally frees Strange from the mirror dimension. This is, I mentioned when they cure Connors, that's when we get the stock footage, like a very extreme close-up of Rhys Ifans' face. I don't even think he makes a noise. I think he just kind of like looks around.
A little confused, as you would be if you were a lizard and suddenly you're a human again.
The goblin unleashes the contain spell, breaking the barriers between universes and pulling in countless others who know Peter's identity. Strange attempts to hold them off, while an enraged Peter 1 tries to kill the goblin. This is Tom Holland. Then Tobey Maguire stops him but gets stabbed by the goblin. Andrew Garfield shows up and helps Tom Holland inject the goblin with his cure, restoring Osborn's sanity. And then he's like, what have I done? That's like the immediate thing.
I mean, he almost kills Tobey Maguire first. But before we get there, Alex, one of the opening quotes I read from Rotten Tomatoes were like, why, if Multiverse, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was one of the greatest things ever, why wouldn't we do it live action? Well, this is why. Because 3 Spider-Man swinging around and quipping and yelling is too many. And even though there's slight differences in their costumes, half the time, more than half the time, you don't know who's who, right?
Dude, no, you absolutely do, because this movie does this bullshit of they just keep pulling their masks off repeatedly, not entrusting you to like be able to recognize their voices or at least tell that they have different outfits on. Like, why are they even wearing their masks?
I forgot. I was talking to the master recognizer of voiceover.
Yeah, why are they even wearing masks? Everyone there knows who they are, and basically what it results in is them, every time it cuts to one of them, they pull their mask off. It's repeated. It's very annoying.
It's hot. Like, I need to breathe.
There's so much sand in this thing.
Yeah. Were you disappointed that they didn't follow through and actually kill Tobey Maguire? Like, that was the moment for him to go, right?
Kind of. Yeah, that's what I was expecting.
But then they kind of make a couple of jokes about it, and then he's fine. It's like, I've been stabbed before. Tom Holland loses his innocence for good here. He comes to the point where he's almost going to kill a man. The transition is complete. Now he is the Spider-Man we deserve, not the Spider-Man that we hoped he would be forever. He's not a kid anymore. Did you feel that it was kind of, the filmmakers, the MCU, giving up on the youthful, happy Spider-Man? It was like, no, fuck it. Here we go. All the tragedy in the world. Because it's not even over after this. There's still more bad things to come for him.
Peter 1 realizes that the only way to protect the multiverse is to erase himself from everyone's memory and requests Strange do so, while promising MJ and Ned that he will find them and remind them who he is. Strange reluctantly casts a spell, and everyone returns to their respective universes. 2 weeks later, Peter visits MJ to reintroduce himself to her and Ned, but decides against it. While mourning at May's grave, he has a conversation with Hogan and is inspired to carry on, making a new Spider-Man suit and resuming his vigilantism in New York City.
Why does he have to make a new suit? Didn't he keep the Stark technology suit?
Looks pretty classic.
Well, yeah, because that's what they're going for now. I take that a little bit of nostalgia, but it's impractical not to have like the super advanced suit. Did he just bury it on May? I don't want anything that reminds me of the last 3 movies.
You gotta understand, that would mean that everyone who knows and loves you, we'd have no memory of you. It would be as though you never existed.
So yeah, everyone goes back from which they came, and we're just kind of back where we started, I guess, except now Peter's on his own, gets an apartment and goes and visits MJ and has kind of an awkward conversation with her as he leaves. She has that look like, don't I know that guy from somewhere? So I assume this is where they're going to pick up in the 4th one. But honestly, this closing little twist of that people forget Peter is the only real original thing this movie offers. That's like the only thing. That's why it's shoehorned in the last scene of the movie. So you're like, oh yeah, otherwise this movie is just nearly 3 hours of saying, remember this? Remember this?
That's how they got you at the end of Far From Home. Remember? You're like, this movie's bullshit. Wait, they revealed his secret identity?
They caught me in the last minute of it.
Yeah.
The post-credit scene of this shows Tom Hardy, Eddie Brock in one of the universes, and then he gets transported back, and we see that he left a little droop of the Venom symbiote behind. And yeah, whatever.
Why would it be Tom Hardy and not Topher Grace.
God, that would rule. But I can't imagine the amount of money he asked for.
Are you fucking kidding me? Are you telling me Topher Grace is more expensive than Andrew Garfield?
No, this is what we've joked about this before, about Topher Grace, how selective he was with the projects he did after that 70s show. That was like one of our jokes of like, you have to pay him the lion's share of the budget for him to come into your movie these days.
They couldn't even use stock footage from Spider-Man 3. Just a close-up.
Oh, man. Yeah, now I'm thinking of Tom Hardy's at that bar, and then Topher Grace comes and sits next to him like, I'll take one down here,
Their little, their Venom suits start coming like together. They don't even notice they're drinking, but damn shame. What do you make of Peter's kind of selfish decision, I think? Or it's just dishonest, right? He promised MJ and Ned with tears in his eyes and their eyes that he was going to find them and get the band together. And then he doesn't do it because he once again makes the call on his own on what he thinks is better for them instead of letting them decide what they want to do with their lives. Isn't that just very much not heroic?
It's very narcissistic.
Yeah. That's not what Spider-Man fans want. After all this bullshit, we want Peter and Mary Jane and Ned Leeds just to ride off into the sunset together. You can still have everything else happen. He can still just move into an apartment. Nobody else has to know about him. He's no longer an Avenger. But at least kind of reassure us that if you make another Spider-Man movie, well, we know for sure that Zendaya and Jacob Batalon are going to be there. I think it's unlikely we're going to see Benedict Cumberbatch or anybody else from the MCU in Spider-Man movies going forward, but I would like to feel like at least some of this trilogy was not a waste of my time, like have something crossover. They killed Aunt May. I don't think Happy Hogan, is going to be part of Peter's life. It kind of feels like we hit like a major reset button at the end of this movie. And it was also, we could get to the very beginning of like where the character is in the Raimi Spider-Man movies. We took such a long road to get us to Peter Parker, unemployed, still going to college. Or I guess he's getting ready for his GED, not having the backing of the superheroes, the rest of the MCU behind him. Like that's the Sam Raimi movies. So it's almost like these three movies, the Tom Holland movies, just a prequel. But we're bamboozled to thinking that we're moving forward with Spider-Man when really we're just going all the way back to the beginning. It's very unsatisfying. That's for me as a Spider-Man fan. Did you feel that way or not? We're just like, I'm just glad it's over.
Yeah, it was mostly that. I did not find myself with any of the curiosity or joy that accompanied my first viewing of Homecoming. I was just like, yep, that movie's pretty much everything the memes led me to believe it would be. And it really, at the end of it, I was like, nothing here was really accomplished. And I don't know. There's people, like, I'm assuming you, and there's others that probably like completely lapped this up and thought it was just so wonderful. And to me, it just seems cynical and lazy.
Well, the one thing that got accomplished, and I think that this highlights the problem with Tom Holland, that he's so easily upstaged in his own movie. The one character that got a satisfying conclusion of sorts was Andrew Garfield. Like for all the Ringo-ness of his Spider-Man in this movie, he does get to redeem himself by saving Zendaya the way that he couldn't save Gwen. And that moment, I think, resonates more than anything else that happens in the climax.
It's possibly the single greatest moment in this movie.
Andrew Garfield, that was part of his negotiation. He's like, look, I'll put up with the jokes. I'll put up with being the one that says, I love you guys, and then they don't say it back. But you have to let me have a hero moment so that when people think of me, they're no longer going to think of my Spider-Man as the one that couldn't save Gwen Stacy. Instead, they're going to think of my Spider-Man as the one that saved Mary Jane. Well, not Mary Jane. She's Michelle Jones Watson here. So mission accomplished. But then the side effect is that, well, whatever Tom Holland does after, it's not as cool. I don't care. Go live in your new apartment. Nobody gives a shit. Anyway, that was Spider-Man No Way Home. Can't wait for real talk so we can just talk a little more about the ins and outs of what at the time was a potential final installment for the Tom Holland Spider-Man. Because obviously you didn't follow this, Alex, but I did as it was happening, and it was not nerve-wracking, but it was just.
It is ludicrous that this wouldn't be the finale. Like, there's no way to. Anyway, yeah.
That and more in Real Talk. Let's go.